Hey, Emily, so good to have you on the show. Thanks
Hey,
for making the time.
you're welcome. My pleasure, Ben.
Awesome. So the first question we always ask is who's in your family? Tell us a bit about your family.
Great question. So I consider my family to be my partner. So I live with my partner and also I would say my mum. So I have other family members, obviously my dad and other siblings, but I'm particularly close with my partner and my mum. My mum and I are like besties. Some people know Mama Ray. She's kind of like iconic. So and super adorable. But we're really best mates and she's worked with me in my business as well. So family for me is probably, first and foremost, I would think my partner and my mom, but also then, my partner's mom a little bit. But then up from there, it's really like friends who feel like family. So I think family for me is kind of like, my bloodline family, but also the
Mm.
people who feel like family. So family for me is a bit of a fluid concept, but I don't have children. I think my business and my clients sometimes is children enough. So, and you can probably relate to that. You're kind of
Yeah.
balancing both, right, with the kids as well. So,
Yep.
but yeah, that's kind of how I define family. So look at like soul family, but also, my mom and my partner. So.
No, cool. There you go. And so I know that there's challenges that come from running a business, but how do you and your partner sort of what sort of rhythms or things that you do to keep that relationship really strong?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's because he's quite busy as well. So we're not in the same business. We're in like two different businesses. And even I would say these principles apply with my mom as well because she's worked
Mm.
with me so much over the last 8 years on different things from like working on client projects through to talking about like marketing and promotion. So I've really got both of them sort of involved in the business in a different way. But I think with my
Mm.
partner and I, it's really you have to separate. This is relationship time, this is time where I need to talk about what's going on in my business or my life, and that's a two-way street. And this is time where we're working, so I'll love and support you from afar and give you a cheeky encouragement smack on the butt, like go babe, you can do it. Like you kind of do that, but I think it's just having that nice division between when you're in which mode. Because if
Mm.
honestly, I wake up in the morning, first thing on my mind is my mind pretty much goes into the office before
Mm.
my eyes are really open. It's just like, oh, maybe we could do this and this. And I've just had to come to understand that in terms of relationship, probably not the best time to like, have quality time with him first thing in the morning during the week. So
Mm.
it's like,
Mm.
okay, we understand at the end of the day, there's certain things that we do just to wind down. We probably hit sort of 8:30, depending on what we're doing, whether we're running trainings, and we log off. And there's a very conscious, like, okay, cool, go and
Mm.
have a nighttime, like rinse up in the shower, just connect, say hello, get back into your body. It's very
Mm.
busy, get back in your body, watch a little Netflix or do a crossword together or hang out or just whatever. And so we
Yeah.
have a really nice daily rhythm that works exceptionally well, that we always end the day on a really nice note that way. And I think it keeps us in a nice kind of flow. So if we're with my partner, I'd say it's about understanding that kind of difference between the two. Like they'll be on a weekend, we don't typically work, and we'll just have quality time, and that's family
Mm.
time or just for enjoyment or social time. And so there's a nice kind of flow, and having that differentiation means that they don't really clash. But I think with my mom, it's been quite interesting because she's very intimately involved in financials and in business. And so one of the things we had to learn over the years was to kind of learn how to communicate boundaries around work. So we actually came up with these cute little phrases, and we had to segment things. So I could be in the middle of something really creative, and then she
Mm.
might message me with something that would be like financial admin, and all of a sudden my creative flow is like it just stops, right? So
Mm.
we had to create this kind of language where we actually call it turkey. So if there's something that's like low level admin or something that needs to be done, which is kind of like not super high priority but needs to be dealt with, that she needs to help me with, she'll say, I've got a bit of turkey for you. And I'll say to her, hang on, give me 3 hours, I'll be with you at the end of the day. And so we've
Yep.
got this kind of like turkey is like really low level. And then we talk about quail. Quail is like the client work. And then eagle is like, are you ready for an eagle conversation? Which means I'd love your
Uh,
input on something that's really high level creative. And that kind of has allowed us to flow around each other from a work point of view, but also
mm.
because otherwise I get really jarred by that creatively. But also it's allowed us to maintain a mother-daughter relationship as well
Mm.
as an adult friendship, as well as a working partnership. So kind of a little
Mm.
bit different for two different relationships, but there's definitely things that we do that keep that in flow. Otherwise, the work just honestly takes over everything.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's always hard to sort of keep that going back. And
Yeah.
yeah, I know even at sort of extended family barbecues and stuff, I look after a couple of uncles and aunts and stuff for their tax.
And
And
then the work conversation comes in.
sometimes it's like, oh, come on. It's like
I know there has to be that communication. I think it's just that respect. I had to explain. I only figured it out probably 4 years ago. It was like I had to explain to my mum, like, okay, when I'm like working on something really creative, I'm writing a piece, I'm filming a video, I'm doing something like that, and you ask me about financial monthly reports, it's going to throw me off. So I'm happy to do that.
Yep.
I'm happy to do that of the reporting, but in a certain flow. And so then I even have my week scheduled now according to certain flow, so things slot into time slots. And that also makes everything a lot easier as well. And when she understands the flow of that, it's really enabled me to have more flow, but also to keep that warmth. Because sometimes, like, oh, hang on, right in this moment, I just want to have a conversation with you as my daughter, and be able to call you mum for a moment, like, because I don't normally do that. And then other times I'm like, well, I really want to get your opinion on this particular thing in my business. So I'm constantly shifting roles inside that relationship, and so is she. So it's like, how do we communicate so that you know where you're at when you need to be there, and vice versa, so that we can flow together and not kind of get all caught up and tangled. So it took us a while to work it out, but I think we got a good flow, and we just pick birds: turkey, quail, eagle. You're like a cheat, kind of like a little cheat sheet of language, and it just lets my brain know, okay, cool, she's not dumping a detail on me that I now have to go and think about. She's saying, I've got something for you later. Okay, cool. That really works.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and it's really helped with fulfillment, but also workflow too.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, would you be able to give us some background on you, and maybe sort of walk us through right from maybe school or after school through to what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So what a ride. What a ride. I love it. So I left school. I did actually really well in school. I'm very studious. I think being a writer, I kind of have an affinity for academia, but I did really well in school, but then, so I could have been a doctor or a lawyer or pretty much anything, but that was kind of the point where I finished school and went, all right, but my head and my heart not necessarily going in the same direction. So I went to university. I did 6 months of sociology and philosophy at UQ, which is Bachelor of Arts. I think lovingly is the degree you sometimes do if you don't know what you want to do. So it's like, for me, it was like a filler because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I kind of intuitively knew I liked, psychology, and I thought about becoming a psychologist. I would have been an awesome psychologist. But I did 6 months of uni. I dropped out. And then I kind of fell into this 7-month course doing neurolinguistic programming. So I ended up doing NLP. I really fell in love with the world of personal development actually quite young, even before I left school. And so through that kind of course that I did, obviously that was a huge emotional education for me to start to understand myself and like how I worked. But then through that, I got connected to like an entrepreneurial network. And so in about 2007, after I finished that course, I had one full-time job. I haven't had a full-time job since 2007. I lasted about 3 months. I always knew deep down, I think, that I felt like I had more in me than to kind of work in a job that way. Just not the right job, I guess. But so I kind of left that job. And then after that, I was quite depressed. I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I say I kind of fell through the cracks between school and life because I hadn't quite figured out what to build my life around. But for me, it was like, I went to the breakthrough experience with Dr. John Demartini, and a lot of you know John from like the movie The Secret. John's an amazing mentor. He's still a good friend of mine today. And so I went, and that was really my turning point, I think, from a personal point of view. I was quite depressed. I was kind of struggling with self-worth and self-love, self-belief, I think all of that. And so that helped me to break through. And then after that kind of pivotal moment for me personally, I started attracting opportunities. And because I was already connected with an entrepreneur network, one of my contacts rang me up and said, do you know you can get paid to write? And it was like this mind-opening moment. I actually had no concept of that whatsoever. I didn't even know I could own a business. I just knew that I had this calling for an original path and to not kind of follow the by the book, way of life, to get a job and, do a degree and whatever. And so I began writing, and I got jobs writing articles for entrepreneur magazines. And then because I was studying with John in 2008, I got offered the opportunity to edit one of his best-selling books, The Hay House. So here's me like, to a huge opportunity. I mean, I think that's what happens when you get really in flow and you figure out who you are and what you love to do. I think always in business and in life, that's actually the most important thing to have clarity on is like, what do you love doing? It's actually it's a commonly asked question, but it's the most important question, because if you don't have that, you're never going to have joy. You're never going to have fulfillment. So I got opportunity, and I think John just knew that I was inspired by his work. He knew that I was determined, that I was young and bright, and I wanted to do it. So here's me, age 21, going, yeah, I'll put a bestseller manuscript together for Hay House. It's
wow.
Okay, I'm just going to say yes and figure it out later, which I managed to do. And that kind of really set everything else, I think, in motion. So when I look back at how everything has evolved, it really feels like it's kind of flowed naturally. And it's funny, in hindsight, you can see how it's been an evolution, but sometimes looking forward, you have no idea how it's going to work out. So yeah, I edited for John. And then after that, I actually got an opportunity to edit and write my first book, so for my own book. And then as soon as that came out, I was 23 at that point, and I'd been doing a lot of writing for people. A woman approached me at an event and said, "You're going to teach me how to write a book." And I remember thinking to myself, I was super jet lagged. I'd just come back from Canada. I was standing going, huh? I just didn't really, I wasn't kind of there in my brain. But I remember, I was like, where am I again? It's like, am I Canada, Toronto, Sydney? I don't know where I am. And I just remember she said, you're going to teach me to write a book. And she had so much certainty. And I remember thinking to myself, I could probably do that, actually. And I've been coaching authors for more than a decade now, because, since that moment. And that kind of led to a lot of other trainings. And I think, that then led to us eventually doing niche publishing for authors. And alongside this, I've done a lot of personal development trainings. I've done a lot of speaking, a lot of programs helping people with business, especially coaches, healers, speakers that want to establish profile. They don't really have an idea on how to kind of package and profile themselves. But I mean, I've had an amazing journey, really. It's not always easy. Like you say, it's not. I kind of laugh with challenges in business. I don't know what you're talking about. It's so easy. It's really not. It's a personal journey. I mean, I don't know anything that grows you as much as having a business does. And I look at how much I've grown personally since, when I left school to 17 years later. And I think I'm the same person. Inside, I'm the same person, but the expression and how I do life is so different to 17 years ago, 16, 17 years. So it's been a pretty amazing journey. But I basically went from personal development to then writing for entrepreneurs, to then working for John, to then writing my own book, to then, coaching people to write books, and then we publish. And alongside that, there's just been a lot of training and coaching. So it's been pretty amazing journey, actually. And I sometimes on days where I get frustrated or I'm overthinking something, I just remind myself, you have a pretty amazing life already. I've had such an amazing journey, and just had some incredible opportunities to work with amazing people. So it's just, it's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, awesome. There you go. And I think we laughed earlier. I found out that you were the Anthill Online 30 under 30 winner in the same year I was, in 2014.
Yeah, I know. I won it for the first time in 2012 and then 2014. So I was like, okay. And I had a couple of entrepreneurial friends that are kind of around my age, 34, but most of my kind of contacts are much older, actually. So when you emailed me and said, oh my God, what are the chances that we just happened to win the same award in the same year, 6 years before you even knew each other? And that's pretty cool, actually. So it's amazing. It's just, that was the year I actually put a project together where we had 365 people's stories and we put them into one book. So one page per person. That was a large project. That was the first year I opened my company, actually. It was like, why not open a company and do this, because I went from being a sole trader to having a business. And it was a huge year, massive project. But that was what that award was all about. It was about helping people to kind of share their message with the world. It was pretty cool. It was amazing. But I love that. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Cut from the same cloth, sort of, in a way.
That's it. Random. So it's not random. What's the word for that?
Synchronous.
That's it.
Yeah. Trust the writer to come up with the word, right? Is it synchronous? I went, well, that was meant to be. So that was awesome.
Wow. There you go. And so you've written 11 books now, and you're writing your 12th. Is that right? That
is correct. Yeah. So I love to write. My heart of hearts. That's me. I love to write. I'm just a writer. I just love words. I love inspiring people. So I have 11 books. About probably 3 or 4 of those are other people's content, where I put together an anthology or had an interview series with other people. And I have probably 4 self-development based books, a couple of books on book writing. So I have a lot of kind of big collection of books. I've actually stacked them up the other day. I went, that's a lot of books. It's a lot of books. But in my 20s, I put out 2 a year, several years in a row. And I was just busy. But then since I put out my latest one, Born Great, which was 2019, I only just started writing my next one, actually. And this one's actually the easiest thing I've written, and I love it. It's coming out sometime later this year. So
Fantastic. And so as you've written those, and I like you've helped lots of business owners also write a book.
Yeah.
What's been the sort of impact that authoring something can have on your personal brand or your business? Like, could you walk us through
Yeah,
some
well,
things?
I think it's pretty commonly accepted that, if someone is an expert in their space, if they have a book, it just boosts that credibility. But I've always liked how the book has the ability to build a warm relationship without you even being there. And I think that's for me always been the magic of it is that, and I've seen this with a couple of my books. I have one of my books, which is a book about book writing. I remember I had a client of mine, and so he had introduced me to another contact and said, you two need to meet. And she was a little bit dubious, like, why is he introducing me? And then he said, maybe you should have a conversation. So then her and I went and had coffee when I used to live in Newstead still. And we went and had a coffee, and I took a copy of the book and I just gave it to her as a gift. And of course, that warmed the relationship right up. And then she went away and she read it inside of a couple of days. And then she's like, oh my God, pardon the pun, but we're like totally on the same page here. I really resonate. I love you. I love what you're about. And then she became a client. And so I've always liked that, whether it's, you're looking to publish it to enroll someone as a client or to build that relationship, or even whether you're writing purely because you want to touch and move and inspire someone, which I've also done. I always love that power in books, and they make great gifts, and they're an awesome like extra product to have as well. So I think all round publishing books is quite incredible, and I've seen a lot of authors get amazing opportunities, and some of the authors we've worked with have then been picked up by bigger publishers and had their books in stores across Australia, and it's amazing. I mean, it opens doors, to having other opportunities, and people just see you differently. Like the moment people go, I'm an author, blah blah, what are your books about? I mean, for me, I tell them how many I've got, and they're like, whoa, they're really impressed by that. But just the individual books, I mean, they just get so moved by that. It kind of makes you more memorable. So I've always loved that process.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that sort of like publishing a book goes hand in hand with sort of building personal brand, and you do a lot of work with people on personal brands. What's your methodology or formula for helping someone boost their personal brand?
You need to speak and write. It's like, I actually think critically, and I mean, I think about this for myself as well, because I've always had like, the Emily Gowor brand. I've had that all the way through. And now I had my company brand for a while, and now we kind of just focus on really personal brand, because really we're niching into like coaching, speaking, author, training. Building personal brand, I found always the most powerful for that. But speaking and writing are crucial. So, whether it's our book or whether it's social media content, articles, like we have articles that go out on like Elephant Journal, or even anything from like LinkedIn to Medium to Facebook, different platforms, Instagram, email, to your email list, setting up content, absolutely important. And then video, which is obviously that other dimension. Speaking, and when this from, because you sort of have a personal brand as well, with like within or kind of beside, I guess, your company, that you're then going out and doing speaking opportunities, and that raises the brand. And I actually think those two single-handedly, speaking and writing, are critical, like absolutely important, because everything I look back and I think all the opportunities that appeared, on my career path and like kind of my trajectory were because I'd written something profound and meaningful, or I'd written the right thing to the right person, or because I'd been somewhere where I'd had the opportunity to speak in front of a room. And that's how DeMartini knew who I was so young, is because I was in his training programs and was speaking, and would speak in front of the room or speak in front of the facilitators at his events. And that's how he knew. So it's like, that's how you make yourself known. And I see a lot of people like with personal brands resharing other people's content. And there's nothing wrong with like referencing on someone else's content, but if you really want to be iconic, I think, and you want to stand out, you have to develop your own thoughts and your own perspective on something, or at least your own take on something, so that people will distinguish that as you versus, you just sharing something that someone else has already said. So that's something that I see a lot. And writing a book is a great way to develop your own kind of perspective and attitude on something, because it forces you have to. There's like, you don't put 30,000 words or 40,000 words down on the page without simultaneously getting clearer on what you're really about. So writing a book can be profound from that point of view. But I think personal branding, speaking and writing in any kind of platform that you possibly can, to the right networks, any opportunity that you can get to do that. I'm writing and speaking for a company at the moment. They're literally paying me to write and speak inspirational content. It's like sweet spot for me. It's awesome. I really love it. It's like a pig in mud. I'm super happy about that. But I love doing that. But speaking and writing, that's how you build influence.
No,
Yeah.
fantastic. And I know that a lot of business owners aspire to write a book.
Yeah.
What's your tips? Like, because it can seem super overwhelming. What's your tips
Yes.
on getting started and what the
Getting started.
process might look like? Yeah.
Yeah, I always say that there's three things that you should do first, and before you even actually start writing anything, because a lot of people go, well, I guess I just open a Word document and then I just start writing it. Oh, please don't,
Yeah.
please don't do that. So the first three things that I always recommend is one, you need to have a really clear vision for yourself as an author. So this book needs to have a driving why behind it. So if you're not clear about what this book is really for, or it's kind of just a nice thought, but you're not really engaged in it, like
Mm,
you don't have a drive for it, you're probably not going to do it. And so
mm,
you need that vision always has to lead everything. And that's true in business, it's true in life. You need to have a compelling reason to do it. So the vision is really important. You need to be able to see this book as part of your future in your business, as part of your career. You need to see this as part of your future aspiration. And once you have
mm,
that vision, then you can start working on the book idea, which is like step two. It's like, what is this book actually going to be? So whenever I've coached, authors in the past, we'll have a conversation about, like a detailed conversation about what is the topic, what is the genre, where would you find this in a bookstore, who exactly are we writing this to, what are we writing about? And we
mm,
get really clear, even down to whether the inside of the book is going to have color or black and white. So you can have that kind of level of detailed conversation as well, because I want to see the product really clearly. And then we talk about what kind of content's going inside the book. So that's like what you would
mm,
call table of contents. So we call it a book outline, a structure, and like a blueprint basically for what's going inside this actual book in between the covers. And if you don't have those three things in place, you're going to have a lot harder time, I think, writing the book. But I always laugh, when I have helped a lot of authors structure content over the years as well. And when we organize their thoughts, which I think is one of the biggest things people struggle with, when we organize their thoughts and their content, they go, oh, I can do this. And all of a
mm,
sudden it's not so hard, because then really you're writing a series of like blog articles or shorter pieces. And I do that with my own books. I just break my content down into smaller pieces, but you need to have that big picture vision, and you need to be able to see the end product in your mind really clearly and
mm.
always work backwards from that. Otherwise you get lost, you get really stuck.
Yeah, no, awesome. And so let's say you've got those things in place. You write those 30 or 40,000 words, which even that's a feat in itself. What happens after that? Because that's kind of like almost, it feels like only half of the job's done.
Yeah, like what do I do then?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, you basically have like once your manuscript is written, you have a few different pathways you can take it. So, and it depends on your vision and your goal. So some people have like the fantasy or the vision or the idea or the dream of like having a big, traditional publisher pick it up, like Wiley or New Holland Publishing, and you can go down that road. You need a literary agent. It's a whole
Mm,
different process. Otherwise, you can go for that kind of extreme, the other extreme, which is just to self-publish it and
mm,
go through that process, or you've got something in the middle where you can kind of work with someone to help you to self-publish it. So I mean, my goal has always been like, and most of my authors actually will start out with a self-published book, but my goal has always been to make the book look like a bestseller,
mm,
even if it's not a bestseller, and it should look like it came out of a top end traditional publishing house, even if it didn't. Because that then increases your chances of that having that actually happen where they pick
mm.
it up. And I've had that happen with 2 of my clients now.
Awesome.
Um, or at the very least, it's going to help you sell the book because it's going to look amazing, feel amazing. So we get very creative, very detailed with, what this actually looks like. But yeah, you kind of got that middle ground of, you need some coaching and support, because self-publishing is amazing because anyone can publish anything. And I think that's incredible. The downside of that is that there's no quality control at all. And so I know that probably everyone listening has seen at least one self-published book that looked like it was self-published. You don't want your book to look like a home DIY craft project.
Yeah,
You want
yeah.
it to, especially because it's representing your business and your brand
Mm,
and your name. The quality of your product, it really does reflect on who you are. So that's where
mm.
you sort of need that middle ground, which I've done a lot of like niche coaching and support in, is kind of bringing that expert experience and the professional background in the publishing to produce the best quality product that you
Mm.
possibly can.
Yeah, fantastic. And what distinguishes a book from being, let's say, self-published or, yeah, I'm going to use that context. So self-published versus
Versus like traditional publisher.
or not ending up in bookstores.
So
That's,
are
I
you
guess.
are you talking about like what distinguishes them, as in like the product itself, or what have I normally seen happen? Like maybe a little
Yeah.
bit more clarity on your question.
Yeah, no, that's all good. So I kind of see that like the big publishing houses would end up in bookstores easily because they have
Yes,
huge contracts with
correct.
them. But I'd say it's extremely hard for a self-published book to end up in, all the bookstores at the airport, shops, all that sort
It
of stuff.
can
So,
be. Yeah.
so what do you see makes that jump from a self-published
Yeah.
book into being
Yeah,
sort
it's
of
a great
commercially?
question. So your quality of your product is one component of that. No two
Mm,
ways about it. Like you need to have a book that has a market match that people are actually looking to read. You need to have, you need to be thinking about the trends, what other books are in that genre. So the product itself is critical. But I've seen for the two clients of mine where they got picked up by a publisher
mm,
after releasing it self-published, both of them were very successful individuals in their own right. So and
mm,
different industries, different fields. They were both had $1 million businesses. So
mm,
they themselves had a lot of profile and had won awards and really established themselves. And it was like synchronous events, talking to the right person, being in the right place at the right time that
yeah.
led to that. Traditional publishers then picking the book up and wanting to take it on as a product.
Mm,
But I mean, the product is half of that, and then the other half of that is how much profile you already have. Because I mean, traditional publisher, generally speaking, the sweet spot for them, like you could be the miracle author for them. You would already have a big email database. You would already have some maybe reach on YouTube,
mm,
online, so you would be established, which is where the speaking and writing component of having a personal brand comes in. Just if you can show them that you have influence, they'll look at you as a sound investment. Because even though there's rose-colored glasses around the idea of like, oh, I got an advance and then I wrote my book and I became J.K. Rowling or whatever. There's sort of a fantasy about that. But at the end of the day, the publishers are in it to make money. So they're looking for books that will sell. And so if you can position yourself and build your profile up to the point where they'll see you as a good deal, then you'll have more opportunities that way. So that definitely happened for these two particular clients. So
Yeah, no, very cool. It's a bit of a goal of mine is to I've got a couple of books left in me, and
yeah.
one of them is to actually get some sort of published stuff out to bookstores and that sort of thing. I've seen
Yeah,
a few people.
definitely. Well, you've achieved a lot and you're kind of niche in your industry. And from what I see, I mean, you're doing exactly the right thing. So, a lot of
Awesome.
speaking, a lot of building profile, a lot of like success in the business and the impact that you guys are having. So you're a pretty good fit already, I think, for a publisher like that. So
Oh, awesome.
and then
There you
picking the
go.
right publisher too. Like you need the publisher that's actually aligned. I think Wiley would be a good publisher. I'm just going to throw it out into the universe. Why not? Why not do that?
Yeah.
I'll just throw it out there. But Wiley, they'd be good just because of the topics. They do a lot of business books. They publish like Jack DeLosa. So you never know. You just have to be in the right place at the right time and have a good vision for it. So
Yeah,
I
awesome.
like it. You can do it.
Thanks for that. And so the other thing I saw in your bio was around your travel life travels, the travel blog
Yes.
that you wrote.
Oh,
Could you
that was
tell
so
us
cool.
a bit of background to that?
Oh, it's
And
been such a long time. Travel. What a concept. Yeah. Yeah, it was really neat. I was very inspired idea. I was actually in Bali at the time. It was 2010, it's a long time ago. 2010, and I was traveling in Bali, and I just had this idea. I was like, maybe I should blog. And this actually is actually a huge side note to like personal branding. And again, it's about writing and speaking, right? So I just remember thinking, I wonder if I could just share my journey, like what I'm learning, what I'm seeing. And that blog for me was very much about sharing spiritual, personal insight while I was traveling. So it's like, great. Like I, traveled here and I met these people, but this is what I learned on a personal level. And then I would put photographs of wherever I was traveling, which was awesome because people felt like they were traveling with me. And then I would share sort of personal insights. And that's what that blog became. So I started it, I blogged 14 days in a row. And then from that point, I traveled for 2 to 3 years, basically on a one-way ticket without a home address, which I can't really even imagine doing today. I was so free in my early 20s, like, I'm just free. I don't have to worry about much. I just go with the flow. Yeah. I didn't even have a 1 month plan, let alone a 3 month plan or a 3-year plan. There was just none of that. It was quite awesome, actually. I think I had it figured out really early. And I was just traveling. And so I was blogging as I went. And then, I won 2 social media awards for that particular blog. So I blogged probably 2 or 3 years in a row. And I went everywhere from like China to Canada and Niagara Falls and down to different parts of Australia, all the way across to like New Zealand. So it was actually really neat. I really enjoyed doing that. I got to a point where people started asking me, not how are you, but where are you? It's like, that's when you've created created a bit of a brand and you created a bit of thing, it sort of created a trend. I thought that was really interesting, actually. So back then my brand was the word artist. So and also it fit really beautifully because I was blogging and I was writing and doing work for people in that way. And so yeah, and people call me the word artist. It was kind of a nice brand, actually. Still suits me today, but I think I just reached a point where I kind of outgrew myself in a way and needed to just, strip it back, I guess, to being just Emily Gowor, but not really just, but just kind of purified it a little bit. But yeah, that brand was amazing, and that I loved writing that blog. It was really quite incredible.
Yeah, no, cool. And did you sort of dive into sort of SEO-y tactic things and
never
all of that stuff, or just
never
just the publish side of it?
Yeah, no, I've never actually relied on it. Never used it. SEO. I think some businesses do extremely well with it. You just have to find the right marketing flow that suits what your service is, what you're seeking to achieve. SEO just has never really been one of those things for me. And so I use social media, and it was Facebook and Facebook followings. And then I had people who are returning to the blog and then reading it and then reading it again and then waiting for the next installment. So consistency was a huge part of the success of that blog, was that I was pretty consistent and religiously kind of devoted to it.
Yeah.
So that helped a lot. So it was social media mostly and posting blogs and articles. Now today, just as like a side note, I don't know how the algorithms go. I think Facebook is, for example, is pretty sensitive about you posting anything that takes anyone off Facebook. So I think the algorithms today probably not as good for blogging. Now I just post the article directly into Facebook with a photo attached to it. So it's a slightly different strategy, but back then you get loads of clicks. I think 10 years ago it was a different world, but that's how I was sharing that blog back then.
Yeah, awesome. I'm a massive SEO nerd right back from probably 2013 onwards, early days of Inspire. And I kind of grew in the first 3 months pretty quickly, but only through my personal network.
Yep.
And after that, it kind of dried up. It was really shocking. And what I had to do was dive into digital marketing. And so from that, probably about sort of April, May, June 2013 onwards, I've just been a student of that sort of stuff. And
I respect that. I think that's incredible. I think my marketing flow is a little bit more, I just need the human being in front of me. I think someone's and other people are really good with like the data and the stats. And so I've kind of had to learn to put these two together, and that a number on a screen is actually a human being. And so there's that whole relationship shift around marketing. Marketing is just meeting people. So if there's numbers involved and stats involved, great. That's part of that process of building relationships. So yeah, the SEO, I think, always just did my head in. And if I ever engage it, I'll have to delegate it. It just won't be not my primary flow.
And it actually sounds like it's something you're already doing. Like, I guess from my understanding of where Google's going is it's more of that sort of human approach. Like, what does actually a human want to see? And if you're posting regularly, it's good stuff. It connects with people. Rather than like going, I think early days, you could kind of game it. And just like keyword stuff, I think they called it. But so it sounds like what you were doing is actually perfect for. It
kind of works. But it's just real warm network. And I found for me that's actually where all my great successes come from. All my opportunities have come from people who know people who know people who know people. And I look at pretty much every speaking opportunity I've ever had. Someone will put me forward for something. Even how I won Entrepreneur Award, the Anthill Entrepreneur Awards, as a friend put me forward. So it's like networks of networks of networks. And if you take care of your people will take care of you. So inspire and touch a lot of lives, and you write and speak and share your view, and you add value to people's lives. No way that's not going to come back around tenfold. So.
Awesome. There you go. And I understand you've done a fair bit in personal development.
Just a little bit.
and also
sort of an understatement with me.
D-Martini when you were really young.
Really young, 19. I found John's work.
Wow, there you go. And so I've got a couple of questions around this sort of stuff. But what are your strategies on balancing personal care or wellness with the demands of being a business owner?
Well, I always say being in business is a little bit like changing a tire on a moving car or a moving truck. It's like you're moving forward, and then you're like, I need to make a big change. It's like there's always constantly feel like you're in this state of like it's a work in progress. But there has definitely been some learning curves for me in balancing wellness and self-care. And when I was probably 28 or 29, like after I opened my business when I was 26, so about 8 years ago, and that point I got really busy. Before that, I was sort of going with the flow. I was doing a bit of writing work, or I'd have coaching clients by that point. And I
Mm.
was just flying. It wasn't making a ton of money. It was like maybe 40, 50 grand a year. But at that point, I was still traveling. So I didn't really have rent. It was awesome.
Mm.
It was such a simplified life. It was fabulous. I wasn't making a ton of money, but I was just kind of going with the flow. And then as soon as I opened the company, everything got more complicated. And it's
Yep.
just just the way I describe it. Even today, I know it's still more complicated than it used to be when I first started out. And everything got really complex and I started working 7 days a week. And it was like,
Mm.
suddenly
Jeez.
I had to hire a team. That wasn't an option anymore. Before that, I was very just solo, just having the occasional person help me here and there. But then I was like, okay, next level, need to level this up. And I was working a lot. And I just
Mm.
didn't really have a boundary between myself and the business. And it was like a blend. Everything just blended. And I'd work at all different times of day, all different days of the week. On the weekends, I'd be like working on a book. And then during the week, I'd be like all over the place. And I didn't really have any kind of separation between personal wellness. I was like, what? I wasn't really even thinking about it. It wasn't really on my mind. And so I did burn out physically,
Mm.
a little bit emotionally, but mostly I think physically. And I was really exhausted. And I had to hit that point where I was like, I need to take care of my body and my health, because at this point, I'm so tired that I can't execute my own vision. It's like I'm
Mm.
at that point where I can't take
Mm.
anything forward anymore. And so I had to start learning to look after my health. And I found the world of Indian medicine and Ayurveda.
Ah,
So
yep.
I think Ayurveda is, for me, the best thing that I found for my body. Just
Mm.
incredible and useful on a daily basis to kind
Mm.
of keep me balanced, to understand how my specific body works. But so there was definitely a physical recovery journey. I've done a lot of detoxing in the last 3.5 years,
Yep.
eating better foods, peeling certain foods out. So there's a physical element to that, and that's very profound. Like I take herbs all the time, like every day, different supplements. I think you need to understand how to fuel the Ferrari. Like you need to be able to do that, because if you're rubbish, everything else is rubbish. It's just the
Yep.
way it is when you own the business. And you can't initiate it, successfully grow it, because your channels aren't clear, I guess.
Mm.
So there,
Mm.
there was definitely the physical element of that, but there was also the emotional side. And it was like having value on myself and learning gradually, like one boundary or one change at a time, to not sacrifice myself for the business, but to learn how to put my energy in and out of the business at different points, and to have things like time blocks. So it's
Mm.
like, how do I do this? I mean, early on, it was insights like, oh, I need some time just for me and my spiritual reflections or my personal development. So I would then
Mm.
start putting boundaries in. It was like, I just need to push back. So I remember I had a client text message me 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. And I remember thinking to myself, and I was just relaxing, like going to sleep, as you do, well, as I do anyway, on a Saturday night. I'm
Yeah.
not really a party girl, but and I remember thinking to myself, this sucks. I actually don't like this at all. I was like, I'm
Mm.
going to change that. So then I kind of put new boundaries in. So clients don't text message me. They email me. They don't call me because I don't answer. Even if I see their call coming and I don't answer it, because everything is routed through email. So I've kind of decided how that part of the
Mm.
business runs. And then I honor that boundary. So it's like pushing back a little bit and everything gets accomplished. It's organized.
Mm.
It's just organized differently. So there's no interference with, that was one thing, there's no interference with my personal energy field. I get to have a say in how that runs. And then it was things like, deciding that all my client calls and sales calls and everything would sit on one day of the week, so Thursday, and
Yep.
organizing the week, so putting time blocks in, and all of that allows me to go, okay, this is now my time. And I know that if I do something that like I run a seminar or something that goes after 9 p.m. at night, I start getting annoyed, because that's really
Mm.
my log off time. So I kind of learned these things just through practice, and they didn't happen all at once. It's not like I had an epiphany one day and just put 15 boundaries in place.
Yep.
I kind of learned it gradually and went, that doesn't actually work. And then I figured out that if I'm rubbish, everything else is rubbish. So I
Mm.
think it was just a gradual journey of pushing back and organizing time blocks and having little things like that language that I have with different teams to say, this is when you can catch me. This is when I'm not available. Just so you know, I'll be over here doing this at this time. I'd like to honor that. I'll get back to you later. So having all those
Mm.
boundaries, and I just found that helps a lot with personal wellness. So it's probably just as much physical as it is emotional, I would say.
Yeah. Yep. No, there you go. And where would you recommend people start sort of looking into that sort of physical health and care element as a business owner? I guess
Yeah.
is the context. So
Well, I think you need to understand your physical body. So
mm.
for me, there's actually an amazing clinic. I'll give them a shout out because they've just been huge in my healing.
For
There's a
sure.
clinic actually in Brisbane called Back to Health.
Yep.
So Back to Health are in West End, or on Montague Road. But anyway, they're amazing. So they're all Ayurvedic medicine, Ayurvedic doctors, and they're just, it's profound. The healing that I've seen, experienced in my own life, as well as the healing I've seen in, like, even my mum, for example, so beautiful Mum Marie, she had been told that post-menopause she would never lose weight. And what a stupid thing to say to somebody. I mean, I just go, that is just, why would you say that to someone? So she'd been trying to lose weight after having 4 pregnancies, whatever. And after being told that, she went and started applying Ayurvedic principles and medicine to her life, and she lost 14 kilograms. And awesome. She's lost even more weight now. So I've seen that in her life, but also for me. I mean, I had, just from a health level, I had probably half a day a week of good creative energy left. I was tapped out. I was exhausted. I was really stressed. I was super wound up. Had tons of bloating, a lot of gut issues, leaky gut. My liver was overworked. I mean, I was heading for a bad breakdown, and they pulled it right back in. I mean, I have so much more energy. I have good creative energy every day of the week now. It's just amazing. I mean, the transformation was huge. So I think, that really started for me in understanding how my specific body works. So in Ayurveda, they talk about, the 3 dosha. Doshas are like the different elements. So some people have more fire in them, which is my dominant element, a lot of fire. Other people are more like airy and like, they go with the flow a little bit. And then you have like people who are super chilled out and grounded. They're like more like the Samoan kind of individuals, and they're a little bit more relaxed. And so you understand that different bodies are made up of different components, and then you start to understand what your body needs. So I don't drink coffee and I don't have caffeine, don't eat chili for a reason, because I know that will agitate my body. So just understanding those little things to go, okay, so we just avoid that and have this instead. And I think that really makes a difference, because if I go through a day and I'm like cranky and wound out, it's just pissed off at the world or frustrated or impatient, that is not going to help anyone or anything. It's just not. So I think it's just understanding how your specific body actually works, so that you can be in your business better. So really feeling the Ferrari. So, and everybody's body is slightly different. Like, my partner and I are both Pitta, which is like that fire, very self-leadership driven, very impatient, like to get things done, like control and order, right? But that can go to an extreme. It can be too much. But secondarily, I've got Vata, and he has like what they call Kapha. And so he's a little bit more grounded than me, which is awesome for me as a woman. And I'm a little bit like, woo, like, I just go all over the place. And so understanding that, so I understand how he works, and I also understand myself, and also my mom, like she loves the hot weather. I don't like the hot weather. I'm already running hot. So it's just understanding that. And I just found that's been huge for me in business and also in life. But I think you have to understand where your body's at and be really honest first and foremost. Like, are you actually okay? Because if you're not okay, then that's something's a problem. And I think, was it Richard Branson that said, if you have a problem in your business, that's not a problem. If you have a problem with your health or your family, that's a problem. Yeah. And I like his sense of priority that, your body and your health and your well-being and your loved ones, always number one. And then after that, anything in business can always be solved. And it's kind of nice, stuck with me over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. How good. And that was an awesome conversation at the end. I didn't expect that.
I got a whole like mini PhD on like weird Ayurvedic medicine and mung bean soup, because it works. Like I had to figure it out, because at first I just was like career work, and nothing else, even at the cost of like basically not really having long-term intimate relationships and being sort of close to my family, but not really. And I was really kind of sidelining a lot of things. And it was just through breakdown really that I went, actually, what I want is holistic success, and I want to have fulfillment in multiple areas. And yes, I want to inspire the world with my words. And I absolutely brings me so much joy to work with people and coach and speak. And I love doing that. I also dearly love my partner. I dearly love my mom. I love my health and my body. And, sometimes I step out of being a business owner and go, I'm just 34-year-old chick, and I want to take care of that too. So having to learn that, I always kind of joke that in business, you become a little bit like, I'm not going to say schizophrenic, but like you have multiple personalities, because when you own the business, you have the CEO that's like, I will do anything to make this succeed. I will sacrifice and blood and sweat and tears and work harder, and let's go. But then if you're, you see most of the people I think would be like paying themselves out of the business, I hope. And then there's the employee in the business too, but you have to take care of the employee. So especially if that's also you. So I had to learn to get those two communicating to each other, because sometimes the employee is like, I'm actually really tired and I could use a break, boss. And the boss is like, go harder, work more. And I always kind of been amused at that, sort of dynamic where they need to work together, but you need to work with yourself, and otherwise nothing works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and if anyone wants to follow what you're doing, where are they best checking you out? Is it Facebook or website?
I think Facebook and Instagram are good. So also you can jump on my website. So as long as you spell my last name accurately, you'll find me, because I'm the only Emily Gowor with an OR on the web. So that's how that for SEO, not that, but everyone spells it wrong. So you can go to emilygowor.com or go through to Facebook or Instagram, and also jump on my YouTube channel, because that's brewing this year moving forward. So there'll be a lot of inspirational content, but video content coming out too. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, definitely the best platforms.
Yeah, awesome. And anyone keen on looking into the book that you're going to publish this year, where do they go for that one? Is that
you could definitely follow my socials for that, because I will always post when there's a new book coming out. But if you want some inspiration, my last book is, I think, quite inspiring. It's a 2.5-year project, amazing piece, very deep, has a lot of wisdom in it about really the best wisdom that made the difference for me in being able to create the life and the business that I have now. And so that one is called Born Great, and you can find that on my website. So on the tab on the menu bar, you can go and have a look at it. So Born Great's quite inspiring too. Actually, Dee Martini wrote the foreword for it, so that was kind of nice.
Oh, yeah, good.
Pretty cool, yeah. Full circle, yeah.
Awesome. All right, well, we'll pop those links in the show notes for anyone if they want to check those out. But I just want to really thank you for sharing your knowledge and your learnings over the years with us today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben.
Yep, no worries.